All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Infinite Ability Podcast. I have a special guest with me today, my newest friend, Valerie. Valerie, can you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Hi everyone. Yes, my name is Valerie Fuqua, and as you can see on my wall, I am an artist. I am also autistic, and I have been battling with this my entire life. It's pretty much been a long journey of discovering whether or not I was born broken.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
a good question, isn't it? So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited about this because, as we all know, autism is very common, especially nowadays. It
Mm-hmm.
seems like it's more and more common, and it is a different ability. Like I like to say, like it's
Mm-hmm.
different, and a lot of people just don't understand how to handle somebody who has autism.
Mm-hmm.
And autism kind of, in my eyes, it gets a bad rap, and people need to be aware of
Mm-hmm.
what exactly it is. So I'm super thankful for you to come on here and share
Mm-hmm.
your own experiences so then people can really understand what autism is and what it's like.
Yeah, I think the main thing that people have trouble with autism is they don't realize you're basically dealing with a whole new culture you've never met before.
Hmm. It's
Yeah.
a good way of putting it.
Uh-huh, exactly. My self-discovery over the years, I realized that a lot of the things that made me different is just the fact that I am perfectly designed for a world I don't live in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if what I found is that I am perfectly designed to live as a non corporeal being, as in not having a body, not
Mm-hmm.
being on a planet, a physical planet. If I was actually living in a non corporeal continuum like Q, I would be perfect. I mean, all the people who are identified as NTs, neurotypicals, they'd be like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, what's going on? How do I move? And I'd be like, la di da, just like this. And you guys would see that I know what I'm doing. The problem is that I am here on a physical planet in a body, and every time I try to make it work, it's not working the same way it does when you're just a non corporeal being. And so I have to
Mm-hmm.
keep reminding myself the way this works,
Yep.
which
So,
is really tough.
and a lot of people are going to struggle to comprehend what you were just talking about. But
Mm-hmm.
if they just stop and just think for a little bit, they'll get it. Because I know, like yesterday, me and you were
Mm-hmm.
talking,
Yeah,
and at first I was just like, "Oh, what?" you
I
know.
know,
But
right?
then it was like, as we kept talking, I was like, "Okay, okay, I see what you mean now."
Yeah.
So yeah.
But you want to know the funny thing? I'll bet you
Hmm.
anything, anyone who has ever met somebody who has autism or has autism themselves has noticed this. Have you ever noticed that when you first meet a person with autism, they never ask you anything about who they are?
Hmm.
I'm sorry, they
Yeah.
never ask you anything about who you are. They don't ask you your
Yeah.
name. They don't ask you what you do. They don't ask you what you like. They don't ask any of that stuff. You want to know why?
Hmm.
If you were non corporeal, they'd already know. They think about you and they know all of that. Telepathic download. The second you think about somebody, you got all of that. Their entire backstory. It is a strange thing to have to keep reminding yourself, I don't know anything about you, so I have to ask for it.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Interesting.
It does
No, I.
not really work too well either. I've
Mm-hmm.
not
No.
really remembered. I mostly just kind of wait for other people to tell me about themselves.
Yep.
A lot of people
Yep.
do anyway.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. But I mean, there are so many things that are different between the two types of lives. And just understanding those differences can make things much more clear. I mean, like,
Mhm.
for example, the concept of time. I don't think of time as a thing that moves. I think of time as a thing that exists, a static thing, and we move through it.
Mhm.
And we could be
I
here, we
agree.
could be there, we could be over there, and it's all happening at the same time.
Mhm.
Which also kind of means that my memories are kind of out of order. I can't remember what came first. I can't remember
Mhm.
which order things happened in, but I can totally remember they happened.
Yeah. So, do you think that's very common with autism?
I'll bet you anything it is. I've talked
Okay.
to a lot of people who have autism, and time is a really difficult thing for them to
Hmm.
get. So, if it's not now, it doesn't exist. It doesn't matter if it was or hasn't been yet, it still doesn't
Mhm.
exist.
Huh. That's
Yeah.
really, really good for everyone to know. You
Mm-hmm,
know.
most definitely. I've also noticed that we process sensory information very differently from most people.
Mhm.
Have you ever noticed that autistic people do not like to be touched?
Oh
Ever
yeah.
wonder why?
I do. Why is that?
So, when somebody comes in direct contact with me, it's a lot like watching TV, and then all of a sudden, an arm reaches through the television and touches you. It freaks you out. I mean,
Hmm.
seriously, that is the creepiest thing, right?
Yeah.
You you don't expect that.
Mm.
And somebody's touching me? What the hell? I mean, seriously. Sorry. Trying to censor myself. But anyway, yeah, it's really freaky because
Mhm.
you don't expect that all of a sudden all the stuff that you've been watching that doesn't feel real, because what's in here feels so much more real.
Mhm.
Suddenly it's touching you and actually impacting you physically. And it's a real shock. It really is. So it's best not to touch a person who has autism without first letting them know you're there, and second,
Mhm.
getting permission.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's really good to know. Really
Yeah,
good.
I've also found that when someone touches me, I don't know, it's like who they are has invaded my soul. And so if they're not a lot like me, it feels really bad or
Mhm.
disruptive. So
Okay. Yeah.
especially the people who are real forceful go-getters, leaders, they have
Mhm.
their emotions coming out all the time. The people who are more laid back and gentle, not such a problem.
Mhm.
But
Hmm.
the people who are really out there go straight to my center, and it can be a lot to take. I try to avoid the handshakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go for a
Yeah.
wave.
There you go. That works.
Uh-huh,
Oh,
exactly.
and don't try to censor yourself. My show is all about everybody being their true, authentic self. So
Okay,
go
great.
ahead, say whatever you want.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that.
Of course. So you told me that you had to work to activate your conscience. Now,
Oh,
this was very interesting to me, so I would love
mhm.
to know more about that.
Yes. So I was 6 years old and standing in a classroom watching this little boy who was getting, told about how he had hurt a girl that was sitting near him. There was paint on the table. We were doing paints, and she had the long braided pigtails. I'm sure you can imagine what probably happened. It was something
Hmm.
along those lines. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm looking at the look on his face, and he's staring at the floor and kind of moving around, all uncomfortable and whatnot. And I'm trying to figure out, what does that look on his face mean? I know
Hmm.
I've seen that somewhere before. And my brain, fortunately, auto compiles all kinds of psychology information, facial expressions, what the expressed emotions mean, what people concluded that expression meant, all of that stuff, how they treated those people after they expressed that expression. So I was able to actually find it after a while, and
Mm-hmm.
it said guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, have I ever felt guilt before? I mean, 6 years seems like a long time to have never done anything to feel guilty about. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, everybody knows how kids can be. They're always getting into fights, they're always getting into trouble. And I actually get into trouble a lot more than most kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, Occam's razor, it's a scientific principle that says the simplest explanation is usually the right one. Have I lived 6 years without doing anything wrong, or do I simply not feel guilty when I do? I was pretty sure it was the second one, and I proved
Yeah.
myself right.
Mm-hmm.
I found out after years of soul searching and attempting to heal myself and embrace reality and trying to figure out what exactly had caused me to not feel my conscience if I
Mm-hmm.
had one.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, when I was in my 20s, I'm walking down the street and all of a sudden, it feels like the world is ending. I mean, there are people dying left and right. There's all these wars going on and rampant famines and, countries that are assaulting each other for no good reason. And there's
Mm-hmm.
pain and death everywhere. And I am just feeling it. Oh, and it feels like there's no hope ever. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this? It took me 5 solid minutes afterward to figure out, oh yeah, my conscience randomly activated for a minute, but then the trauma shut it back down again. I ended up figuring out how to give it a dimmer switch so I could just slowly turn it up and up and up. It's active now, so makes it a
Mm-hmm.
lot easier for me to not hurt people inadvertently, which I gotta
Yeah.
tell you is another thing that is really difficult about interfacing with somebody who has autism. It's really hard for a person who has autism to keep track of when they are saying something a little too bluntly or using words that can be interpreted differently than how they mean it.
Yep. And I think we've all experienced that with somebody with autism.
Oh, yeah. If we were
Yep.
telepathic, we would never be offending people because everybody would know exactly what we meant, and they never take
Mm-hmm.
it any other way.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, English and many other human languages have multiple meanings in
Mm-hmm.
every single word, every sentence structure, everything, and
Mm-hmm.
multiple ways it can be said.
Especially English.
I don't know if it's especially English, but yes, English is definitely very open to interpretation.
Yep.
Yeah, I
That's
have
for
definitely
sure.
heard that a lot of the Oriental languages are much more specific and clear because of the sheer number of words that they have available to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Cool.
Look at love.
Right.
The Greeks had what, 26, 28 different words for love, for all the different
Mm-hmm.
kinds of love. We got one, maybe a
Mm-hmm.
couple more because there's also lust. But nobody
Mm-hmm.
ever uses that. They just say love for
Yeah.
everything. Oh, yeah. So much room for misinterpretation. No wonder relationships are hard.
Well,
You never know why
that's for
somebody's getting
sure.
into the relationship. I
Uh-huh.
love you. What? You love my body or you love my heart?
Exactly. You never know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, let's not go down that rabbit hole.
That's a rabbit hole.
Yeah. So, something I noticed about you is you are very good at storytelling. Now,
Thank you.
storytelling is so important. It's a way to connect with anybody. It's great for communication
Mhm.
with anybody. And, you know, I think like how do I want to put this? Like usually people who have autism, they try to talk as least as they can.
Emotionless, yeah. It's not
Yeah.
that they try to talk as emotionless as they can. It's simply the fact that our emotions don't seem to affect our body naturally.
Mhm.
What I've found is that there's a big disconnect between the mind of someone who has autism and the body, which means that it actually requires extra effort for me to move and to emote.
Okay.
And that means that the reason why I'm actually this good of a storyteller is because I spent 30 years learning how to act.
Mhm.
Fortunately, I have a mother who is best compared to fire, an out of control forest fire. Her emotions go everywhere, and she is an amazing storyteller. This is, in
Mhm.
fact, exactly how she speaks. So
Mhm.
much so that when people who have known me for an entire year or known her for an entire year meet the other one, they can't remember who is who anymore. I'm the other Robin, she's the other Valerie.
Mhm. That's great.
Uh-huh. Good news is, I think it's hilarious, and she wished she had a twin her entire life. So it works perfect for us.
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. That's
Oh, yes,
awesome.
most definitely. But oh, it has been a long journey. I used to be somebody who was very emotionally flat. In fact, uh, I had resting sad face. So when I would just be sitting on a ledge or something, daydreaming out at my school, people would come over and go, "Oh my God, are you okay? Is everything all right?" I'm like, "I'm fine. Why are you bothering me? I was daydreaming and having a great time." Seriously, they would interrupt me during the most exciting moment in the dream or daydream. I mean, it would be an action scene where people are fighting each other and the good guy is winning, or a love scene, or whatever. And it does not show up on my face naturally. So I ended up memorizing, okay, smile, smile. So after a while, I have resting happy face. Then people stop
There
bothering
you
me.
go. That's good. That's good. Awesome.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
so
yeah,
awesome.
definitely. I have done a lot of brain training, but you know what? The thing that I found is after all of this training to make myself more like this, that, or something else that interfaces better with NTs, neurotypicals,
Hmm.
this is not the best way to handle autism. It really isn't. I mean, people with autism, they have a harder ability to understand other people. I have noticed that social interaction is much easier for neurotypical people to understand and to
Hmm.
adjust for differences
Hmm.
in than people who have autism.
Hmm.
So the true answer is actually to train everybody else to interface with us.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I'm happy that we're doing this because
Mm-hmm.
you're bringing awareness to neurotypicals
Mm-hmm.
on what it's like to have autism and how they can interact with you
Yeah.
way better than people currently do.
Yeah, and I think the biggest key to understand with people who have autism, so that there aren't those accidental offenses or whatever, people with autism do not do well with suggestion, innuendo, or any other sort of subtext.
Hmm.
So, if there are multiple ways to hear what they have said, choose the most direct and obvious meaning because that's the one they were thinking of.
Yep.
In almost
Well,
every case, that is the one they were thinking of. But if
hmm,
you're worried, just clarify.
Yeah. Is
Reserve
a
all conclusions and offenses until after you have asked.
yeah.
Seriously. It prevents
Mm-hmm.
so many fights. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
have actually learned how to mediate disputes where two neurotypicals are fighting each other using completely different words to fight for the exact same side of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't
I've
get
done that.
it. Lucky me, when I was 7, I decided to become a universal translator because nobody would ever bother to figure out how I spoke and thought. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, fine, I'll do it. But really, I mean, it does not work. It just builds in more and more layers for me to have to unbury myself in so that I can heal myself and function better in
Mm-hmm.
reality.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's super important.
Thank you.
Super important. So what would you say is the biggest struggle that you face living with autism?
Terror. Absolute, completely paralyzing, overbearing terror. I have to tell you, after all this study in autism, the thing that I've discovered is that autism is basically an amplified version of um, agoraphobia. It's like agoraphobia on steroids, okay? You're so terrified of reality, seeing death around every corner, absolutely convinced that something's about to kill you at some point,
Hmm.
that you just refuse to even leave your head.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
And the more severe the person's autism is, the more severe their phobia is. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
reason why when you've got somebody who has autism and they won't look at you and you go,
Mm-hmm.
look at me. I mean, that is the worst thing you can do to somebody. Seriously.
Yeah.
I can't
You.
look at you because your personality is too loud. I'm sorry. I will
Mm-hmm.
look in your direction, maybe. I actually learned how to give the illusion of looking people in the eyes by staring right here,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe
There you go.
to the left or right of their eyes. Uh huh.
Yep.
Yeah. Neurotypicals are obsessed with getting people to look at them. The fact of the
Well.
matter is, if they want to be in the room with you, they like you. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which for
Yeah.
someone with autism is actually a very strong feeling.
It is. Yep.
Oh, yeah, most
Wow.
definitely. The fact that
Hmm.
they don't face you when they're talking to you, the fact that they won't look at you when you're trying to talk to them, it has absolutely nothing to do with anything.
Mm-hmm.
That has everything to do with them and their inability to interface with reality because it is just too terrifying. And I'm sorry, but
Mm-hmm.
that's just how it is.
Yep.
Learn to love the little things that indicate the love, okay?
Mm-hmm. So, I one of my good friends, his twin brother has autism,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like the first person that I really got to know
Mm-hmm.
that has autism. He's super awesome, super independent. He's just a rock star. And
Awesome.
but like growing up, when we were younger,
Mm-hmm.
he all he wanted to do was play vi- video games. So,
Yep.
do you think that there's a correlation between like him not wanting to enter the real world and video games, and that's why
Most
he
definitely.
liked them?
Oh,
Okay.
yes. It is a way to externalize fiction and even interact with other people doing it. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to worry about dying in a video game. All that means is you start over.
Yep.
If you die
Exactly.
here, totally different.
there, there might not be a respawn available.
Well, I mean, that kind of goes into, what your beliefs are and all of that. I believe in
But it's
respawn, other
true.
people don't, but,
Yep.
you know. It's still horribly painful and absolutely terrifying, let me tell you. I
Yeah.
remember. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's I get to know them.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
you know.
We also tend to obsess over specific things.
Mhm.
I've noticed that when you have autism, especially the more severe forms, you find what you like and you stay there. This is
Mhm.
actually a feature of PTSD and phobias. You find the comfort zone and you stay in that comfort zone. And it's just more
Mhm.
extreme and noticeable with autism. So you find that thing that you're good at, that you can succeed in and have fun with, and you just keep banging on that drum until everyone else is
Mhm.
sick of it.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Um. So one thing that me and you have in common
Hmm.
is we're constantly moving. So because of my cerebral palsy, I have a problem holding still. Now, for me, that's just my muscles not relaxing. But
Oh,
I know,
that's what it is.
yeah,
Okay. All
yeah,
right. I actually knew somebody who had cerebral palsy.
yeah. So yeah, like
Hmm.
I just can't really
That
relax,
makes sense.
But for you, you
Hmm.
have a lot of different reasons than my reason.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
you tell us about that?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. This goes back to processing sensory information differently. I can't
Mhm.
process more than one sense at a time.
Mhm.
Also, um, I'm on constant sensory overload all the time, all day, every
Yeah.
day. There's too much coming in. I can't process all of it. Now,
Mhm.
when I was 7 years old, I did realize that this was a real issue because I nearly ran into a wall one time when I was in conversation with somebody. I also typically would get lost trying to get to a location, but I was in conversation with somebody, so I wasn't seeing
Mhm.
where I was going.
Mhm.
I also ran into like several people too. But anyways,
Hey, I think we've all done that. It's okay.
yeah, well, I did it because I wasn't seeing anything. When I hear you, all of this is a blur. It's just a
Mhm.
mess of colors. And I have no idea what's going on. And
Hmm.
that's really bad for navigation. So, um, when I found out that when you have autism, you have a lot more uh, a subconscious processing power available, basically automation. I was like, well, maybe I'll be more functional if I take advantage of that and just shift a lot of this stuff to subconscious processing instead of conscious processing. That could help.
Mhm.
So, since my dad was a computer programmer, I figured I would just take inspiration from that and also the fact that uh, the old time movies were called flicks because they would just shift or flick by a bunch of different
Mhm.
pictures and give the illusion of it moving. So I
Mhm.
would just switch back and forth really, really fast between two different senses to give the illusion that I was processing them simultaneously. I could
Mhm.
process one sense and all the information coming in really, really fast. I just can't do more than one at the same time. That's like juggling, and they all fall around me.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
mean, seriously, have you guys tried to juggle before? Oranges, you toss them up in the air, and all of a sudden you got an orange rain, and you're like, oh, please don't hit me. Thank God it wasn't
Yep.
chainsaws.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
That's
most
good.
definitely.
That's
It's
good.
just insta fail. So
Mhm.
anyway, the switcher program really, really helped. It's because of that I can actually drive safely.
Mhm.
I built a buffer system that will actually temporarily memorize the last few seconds of incoming data from whichever senses I have designated for it to actually memorize. and it automatically sifts through all of that data to tell me what is the most important stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll prioritize it. I usually only get past the priority 1 and 2 stuff, and then
Mm-hmm.
everything else gets chucked. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that auto chuck also relates to duplicate sensory information. If it hasn't changed, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that one actually predated the switcher program that I built.
Mm-hmm.
It was already happening like that. And so I constantly move, because if I don't, the sensation of my body disappears.
Hmm.
It's like I don't exist anymore, like I have faded out of reality. And that is a terrifying thing that you don't expect to happen. I mean, seriously, have you ever imagined what it would be like if your body disappeared? There's an actual phobia for that, in fact. There is an actual fear called the fear of fading away or out of existence.
Mm-hmm.
There's a similar
Hmm.
one called the fear of shrinking into nothing, also. I don't remember what exactly they were called, but the
Mm-hmm.
fact of the matter is, it's not just people with autism who have that fear. And so I have to
Mm-hmm.
constantly move so that I can still feel my body here. And the only time I don't have to move is when I am so mentally absorbed in something that I am obsessed with or having fun with, that I
Mm-hmm.
completely forget whether or not there is a body there.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
I actually tried to sit
That's.
still one time. I was at a concert on stage, in fact, so I was probably not the best place for it, but I was bored.
Mm-hmm.
We were waiting for the introduction to be complete so that we could actually start playing. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I tried to sit there still for
Mm-hmm.
as long as I could, and my body disappeared, and I couldn't feel anything, and I could feel the panic rising, and I'm like, what is going on here? And all of a sudden I feel like I'm falling, or actually being sucked into this black hole of nothingness, and everything is disappearing, and I'm like, oh my god, what is going on here? I got to 11 seconds, 10 or 11 seconds, and I was about to have a panic attack. I had to start moving again before I had a freak out on stage in front of everybody.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
insane.
That's so interesting, though. Like,
Mhm.
as to why you have to keep moving, and
Mhm.
it makes sense.
Mhm.
Like, so wow.
Yeah. I hadn't actually thought about it actually until I read this interview. My English teacher had just randomly said, all right, I've got these newspapers. We're all going to pick one article, read it, and then tell the class about this article. And so
Mm-hmm.
he passes these newspapers out to each row, and I'm like 3 or 4 people back. So I get to pick one page out of that. And mine just so happens to have an article with an interview with an autistic person who was
Of
verbal.
course.
I know. I know. I mean, it's like lightning struck. This was actually the moment that I realized I probably have autism, in fact. I read the
Mm-hmm.
article and he talked about how he could only process one sense at a time. And his primary sense, by the way, was feel. I was like, how does that work? How do you get around by feel?
Mm-hmm.
My primary sense is sight. I'm very glad about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I even have enough attention left over for a secondary sense, which is hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two main ways that I process and interpret the world. And in
Mm-hmm.
fact, um, this also means that I have almost no experience with the other three taste, smell, and touch. So I literally can't actually identify things by taste or smell. Um,
Okay.
if I don't know what I'm eating, I actually don't know A, if I like it, or B, if it tastes good, or C, what it is. One
Hmm.
time I guessed by its appearance that it was day old pancakes covered in syrup.
Mm-hmm.
It turned out to be old fish fillets soaked in was what's that stuff called? Malt vinegar.
Ew.
How can I be that far off?
That's disgusting.
Seriously, those are completely different. That's when I
Yeah.
knew I had a serious problem with interpreting sensory data through the other three senses. I was like,
Yep.
okay, I have no idea what I'm doing here. I need to know what I'm eating before I eat it. If I can't identify it, I'm not eating it.
Yep.
I don't care how free it is.
That's great.
Oh yeah. Anyway, so the article that I was reading, it actually had him talking about his experience attempting to get a CAT scan so that they could learn more about how his brain was set up and how it was different from people who don't have autism. And it
Mm-hmm.
was nearly impossible to get him to sit still enough in order to do that. He had to constantly move. He didn't actually
Mm-hmm.
say why. I don't know that he was able to verbalize that, but
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know. And that's why I did the test. And then I
Yep.
instantly regretted it.
Yep.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Huh.
But at least I know, and now I can tell people about it.
Yep. There you go.
hmm
So, what are some tricks that you use to interact with other people?
Oh, well, besides the programming, the insane
Yep.
amount of programming that I've created over the years, you have no idea how many programs I made.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So I created a fake conscience that was supposed to serve in place of my conscience until I discovered I had a real one I could activate. It never
Mm-hmm.
really worked. Seriously, it caught a few things, but for the most part, I was completely blindsided. I really was. I mean, it wasn't until high school that I really started to get things, and that was because I'm actually a telepath. And I was able to see
Yep.
through other people's eyes and hear through other people's ears how my words would impact. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, that only told me the second I said it what was going to happen. Then I go, oops. Not so helpful, but at least I was able to learn a lot faster what not to say and how not to say it.
Yep.
But anyway, then there was also the navigation program that I built so that I could use the switcher program to navigate me to where I needed to go, even while I was in conversation with people or
Mm-hmm.
paying attention to something else. I actually got really good at reading while walking on my way to my next classroom. And I was a person who never ran into anybody after that.
Really?
Oh,
Huh.
yes. I built a really good program. Unfortunately, if it ran into any sort of a logical issue, it would do the same thing as any computer would when it ran into a logical issue. It would go around over and over and over again, trying to reach a single conclusion and continuing to come up with multiple conclusions
Mm-hmm.
until it would overheat. And fortunately, in my case, overheat means that it's sucking up more and more uh, um, mental capability until I just can't concentrate on the other thing anymore. And suddenly I'm paying
Mm-hmm.
attention to that now and going, wait, what's going on? And that usually told me that something very upsetting was about to happen. When the first few times it happened, I kind of ignored it because it was usually going to be
Mm-hmm.
a collision with a person, and it couldn't tell whether to slow me down or speed me up because they were equally going to resolve the issue.
Yeah.
But then it was about to happen with a car, and I was like, okay, this is a problem. It couldn't
Just a
tell
little.
whether to stop me or make me run across the driveway. And I was about to get hit by a car pulling into the driveway from the street,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really bad. And I was like, okay, nope, nope, that's bad.
Yeah.
So I actually had to say, okay, you get 3 tries. If you can't resolve, update me, loop me in.
Yep. There you
3
go.
tries takes about a half a second, and
Mm-hmm.
that is a small enough delay that I'm probably not going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Uh-huh,
It's
yeah.
really cool.
But I don't know that I have too many tricks that are really going to help other people. This is,
Mm-hmm.
lifelong brain training and probably not a good idea to begin with anyway. I ended up having to do away with it. The thing that
Mm-hmm.
really helped me to interface with real people and reality is to work through my deep seated traumas and the phobias that
Mm-hmm.
I had, and to do real severe PTSD training. I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
PTSD uh, trauma work. That's what it is, trauma
Mm-hmm.
work, which is in small ways uh, encountering the things that scare me and then building up successes where I have conquered them. And then just
Mm-hmm.
stepping it up, starting with things that I can really control, and then stepping it up over time, taking more and more risks, and then seeing that I can surmount those challenges and still win. That is what really allowed me to pull out of the autism and actually live in reality with everybody else. And I've
Mm-hmm.
actually found that a lot of my autistic symptoms have dropped away naturally because of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And honestly, you know, as a life coach, that's what I help people do is
Awesome.
overcome the problems that they had in the past
Mhm,
and work through them.
mhm.
That is what I do, and it's amazing how you can come out the other side a
Yeah.
100% better
Oh,
person,
yes.
and you understand yourself a lot more.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think everybody needs to do that
Yes.
because when I did it,
Mhm.
it completely changed my whole life.
Uh-huh.
Like,
And you can be proud of yourself. You don't have to be
yeah,
embarrassed or feel like a drain on society or a burden on the people who know you. You can be
yeah,
proud of who you are. Yes, you still
hmm
have a lot of the same problems, but you can do better, and there's hope.
yeah, and you know how to work through your problems. That's
Mhm.
the main thing.
Yeah. And
A
some of
lot of
them may
people,
not be permanent.
no, yeah, exactly. A lot of people get consumed in their problems,
Mhm.
and then they become permanent when they don't have to be. Like you can work through them.
Yeah. Yeah, when people have something that seriously impedes them from life, and it's not just people who have different abilities, but it's also anybody really. When
Hmm
you have something that makes it much harder for you than anyone else to do the same thing, you have a tendency to get into this mindset of I can't, I can't, I can't.
hmm
And it's a brick wall that you keep hitting your head into before you've even tried. And I had to
hmm
change my thinking from I can't to, well, not right now, but I can give it a shot and see if that'll change.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just
Yeah,
keep trying.
like one thing that I live by is I don't say I can't.
Hmm.
I say how can I?
Yes,
Because there's always a way to do everything.
that's true. That's true. There are
Hmm
many, many different ways to do a lot of things. And you don't have to have the same capabilities as somebody else. I mean,
mm
look at paraplegic basketball.
Yeah,
They don't have to
exactly.
have their legs to play basketball. I mean, that's a
Yep,
prime example.
that is.
Everything can be adjusted to what you have available to you.
Yep, I agree. That's
Mhm.
so powerful.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, no problem.
So, I've got one more question.
Yes.
So, my slogan,
Mhm.
your abilities are infinite.
Mhm.
What does that mean to you?
Well, the first thing that popped into mind is the expanse of galaxies.
Hmm
Oh yes, but you know, it's pretty much been my lifelong philosophy that I don't know what I can do in the future. I only know what I can do right now. And when
Mm-hmm.
I was 6 years old, I embarked on a journey to try and discover how I could be better than I was, and just by understanding how I was different and how I could make that better.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know if it was ever going to lead anywhere. I didn't know if I was going to be the least bit successful. I could end up doing it for my entire life and have nothing to show for it. And I knew that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, but you know what? It could get better. It's
Mm-hmm.
worth it. I can see all of the things that I am missing out on. Things like love, like relationships, things like travel. And I can see how much other people enjoy those things. And I could not
Mm-hmm.
care less. It
Mm-hmm.
makes zero impact on me. And I'm like, I know I'm missing out. I can see it on their faces. There is something that makes a difference to them, but not to me.
Mm-hmm.
I could have that. I just have to try.
Yep. Exactly.
And I
That's
know I can now.
oh yeah. That's for sure.
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah, I could
Awesome.
actually
So
fall in love and have a real relationship with a guy,
yep.
which is absolutely astounding to me because that was completely outside of the picture before.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Huh. Well, yeah, you can do it. I believe we can do anything, you
Thank
know,
you.
anything. So, all right, so where can people find you if they want to reach out to you or see what other stuff you have to offer? Because I
Mhm.
know you have a YouTube channel.
I
So,
sure do. I do have a YouTube channel, which I am planning to get back to adding on to once I've
hmm
gotten used to the filming format again. I have major anxiety,
hmm
especially on stage or in front of other people. So, I kind of need to get back to getting used to stepping outside my comfort zone for that because,
you,
it is terrifying every time. I feel like I'm re traumatized every single video. And then, of course,
hmm
there's the editing process. um, yeah, I
yep,
know. For me, it's extensive. But, anyways, yeah, I have a YouTube channel under my name, Valerie Fuqua, and that is my everything else channel. All of the other stuff that I'm interested in. It includes videos on autism, well, a video right now, and also a video on how to stop panic attacks. It's just a stopgap thing.
hmm
True healing comes from actually working through the emotions, but this is how
hmm
to stop it while it is happening in public, when you're in the middle of a speech or you're trying to be out having an outing with your family at the zoo or you're driving. Yeah,
hmm
I knew I needed something when it happened to me while I was driving on the road, going
yep.
next to a mountain with a steep drop right next to me. And it was a really tight turn,
Oofta.
30-degree
Yeah.
grade. I mean, it was absolutely terrifying. And I'm having a panic attack while I'm
hmm
driving. This is not cool.
No, definitely not.
No, no. And I actually managed to control myself to the point that while I was going to or trying to go to jury duty for the very first time, and I had all these things terrifying the heck out of me, and I
hmm
could not fix them to stop the terror from, you know, continuing to redline me.
Yep.
I was actually able to keep myself before, in that I'm breathing and hyperventilating, but I am still able to speak to people and form coherent words and actually
Hmm.
perform actions spot. Uh,
Mhm.
And I haven't gotten to the point where now they need to call the ambulance and send me to the hospital where they just stick you in a room and leave you alone for half an hour.
Yeah.
They don't really
Yeah.
do anything to treat that sort of thing. They just leave you alone for a half an hour and hope it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big solution.
Wow.
Anyway,
Well,
I was able to keep that going for an hour, an
hmm.
entire hour. Most
Wow.
people, when they're having a natural panic attack, they've got like maybe 3, 5 minutes if they're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
only takes like I don't know, a minute for it to convert from that to now they have to go to the hospital because they're completely incoherent.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was
Wow.
able to do it for an hour and actually solve each of the problems that was causing me to panic.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because everybody else was panicked and trying to get me out of there before I made a scene.
Yep. Yep.
I didn't have to do jury duty, by the
Yeah.
way. I have a clean slate, zero jury duty events because seriously, I don't think I'm there yet.
Well, I think it's really awesome that you took the experience and made a video about to
Mhm.
help others.
Yes.
That's so awesome.
And
So
I'm also available on Facebook under my name, Valerie Fuqua. And for
okay.
those of you who have more interest in my mention about being a telepath, I also have a YouTube channel called Psychic Kitty. And you can find out
Hmm.
more about my abilities there.
Awesome.
Hmm.
Awesome. So I will put all of your links in the show notes so everybody can find them.
Thank you.
And yeah,
Hmm.
this has been really great. This has been awesome. And bringing awareness to autism is extremely important. So thank you for taking the time to do that for us.
No problem. Thank you very much and have a great day. Bye bye.
All right, everyone. This has been another episode of the Infinite Abilities podcast. I will see you on the next one.